It's a lot of the same tools, but Blood Baron of Vizkopa, if that gets into play, very challenging for Mono Black Devotion to beat.
Yeah. Fortunately, though, Michael Braverman, he's running the black-white mid-range build. This is similar to the one that Ben Friedman made the finals of at the last Invitational. There are no Blood Barons in the 75, just playing it for Obsidat Ghost Council.
And we had Brian Brondewin on camera last round playing black-white mid-range as well. He had Blood Baron in his sideboard, no copies in the main deck.
All right, well, with that, we are underway. Rill's going to start out. He is second here, starts out on the Temple. First play is going to be Braverman, and that's going to be a Pack Rat.
And on top of cards like Blood Baron and Vizkopa, having access to Banishing Light in this sort of matchup is another critical tool. And the Mono Black Mirror Underworld Connections is untouched. It's one of the most significant cards. Having answers to Underworld Connections is a big deal for black-white mid-range.
All right, now originally when the Mono Black Mirrors, Pack Rat was kind of viewed as this trump here, as we see that Eric's going to let Braverman untap with one. But if Braverman wants to start Pack Ratting, he does have to be careful here because of Bioblade. Is that right?
For sure. I mean, these Black Devotion lists, they're all over the place with their Bioblade count. Some play 0, some play 2. Eric's all the way up to 3. He has more than most copies do. It is a bit suspicious for this deck to not have a Thoughtseize or Pack Rat or removal spell, so I think Braverman's probably going to be really cautious about moving in on this Pack Rat. It feels like Eric's trying to induce him to use it, so we'll see how this proceeds.
Yeah, he swings there and doesn't make a second Rat to pump, and actually just passes the turn. And on end step, Rill will show that he did have the Bioblade. It's like a good call here by Braverman to not go in on that plan.
Yeah, I like the play from both sides. You know, if you're in Eric's seat there, no reason to main phase it. You might get another card out of Braverman, and from Braverman's side, the odds are so low that he doesn't have Bioblight. Might as well not do anything too risky.
Yeah, Rill makes a Night Veil Spectre for the turn. That in turn needs a Bioblight from Braverman, so there's no creature being able to stay on the board as of yet. Braverman will now play a Desecration Demon, however. So one of the larger 4-drops there. We see that actually Rill did have a Pack Rat in hand, but didn't want to play it on turn 2 because of the effect the Bioblight would have had if he had to cast it.
And it's just, again, so unlikely that your Pack Rat sticks at that stage. I think Eric's sequencing gave him the most upside there.
Yeah, a lot of trading going on here. Braverman's Desecration Demon trades with Rill's Hero's Downfall, but more importantly, Eric did not hit land 4. And we're getting into that phase of the game where Black-White Vintage kind of shows off the power level of its cards. We see Braverman shocking for an Obsidat.
When these players, you know, it's a lot of removal spells, it's hard to get too much in play to stick. When one person has Obsidat and the other person has a Grey Merchant, that's a pretty big advantage for the player with Obsidat.
See, Braverman plays it and exiles it. This is going to put pressure on Eric to have some instant speed removal, whether it's Devour Flesh or Hero's Downfall. Instead, he'll just make a Desecration Demon here. He can't kill the Ghost Council, but maybe he can stop it from attacking.
Yeah, but it's tough, you know. The black-white mid-range deck has a lot of the same removal tools that Mono Black Devotion does, and Desecration Demon rarely sticks around for that much in the mirror match.
Braverman on his turn makes a 6th land. It's a temple. He's going to scry to the bottom. Looks like he has actually just a pair of lands left in his hand, so a little flutter on his side. He'll just blink out the Obsidat.
This is a really good sign for Rill. Probably means his Desecration Demon is uncontested right now. Really good chance that Braverman's hand is just lands or maybe some cards like Bioblight. And in spite of the rough start here and the Obsidat on the other side of the table, Eric may just be able to overpower him.
Yeah, 2nd Desecration Demon now for Rill. That stops Braverman from being able to attack and gives Rill permission to attack himself. Right now, this race is going to go in Rill's favor.
Braverman needs a lot of help here.
Well, really just one removal spell would work for now, right?
Yeah, it would keep his head above water for the time being. Though Rill was missing initial land drop, so you have to assume the rest of his hand is more spells.
Absolutely. Pack Rat now the play for Braverman. It's not a terrible draw here, but it seems like so that's the Rat's not going to be fast enough to race. But what it can do is tap some Desecration Demons.
But that's only a temporary reprieve. And keep in mind, Michael did nothing last turn and is just casting a Pack Rat this turn. So Eric can be pretty confident. Pack Rat was the draw step for Michael, and he can enter combat here. If Michael wants to discard cards to pin down the demon for a little while, you know, Eric's fine with that. And if he allows this attack to go through, that's a lot of damage, and something like Grey Merchant can finish him off.
Going back to that last turn, Braverman had the option after playing Pack Rat to make a Rat, tap the demon, and swing for 5. Now, he chose not to do that play, meaning he's on a longer game plan, right?
Yeah, he's trying to give himself as much time as possible to find removal.
And right now, Eric is going to combat, seeing if it's going to get a tap. Remember, that face-down card is an Obsidat that's blinked out right now. It's not a rat token. And now Braverman's going to go ahead and make that play. So he makes a copy of Pack Rat. And he has to think whether or not he can take these 2 hits. If Rill has a Gray Merchant, he's just dead if he takes it.
And because Eric was missing land drops, I think he can be pretty confident that something going on is going on in Eric's hand. It's very likely he has Gray Merchant in his hand at this moment.
Right, Braverman takes 1 demon hit, that's down to 11. And he'll find out pretty quick here. I imagine if Rill has the Gray Merchant, he'll play it anyways here. It gives him a lot of insurance against anything that Braverman could have. But he's gonna go a step bigger. It's Pack Rat for the turn.
Yeah, I like this route just fine.
Yeah, Rill does, his 2 main cards are a land and the Gray Merchant that we were mentioning.
Yeah, it's essentially free for him to just, make a rat at the end here of Michael's turn. That's another thing that induces some amount of action. And then the Gray Merchant's a big insurance policy.
Draw there for Braverman was a second Obsidat. I don't think that's going to do it. Braverman will have to make a lot of sacrifices here to stop lethal from coming. Remember, that Gray Merchant is set. If Rill on end step makes a Pack Rat and then casts Gray Merchant, right now it's set to drain for 8. So if Braverman at a virtual 5 life. And Braverman's going to go ahead and swing the team. The 1 Pack Rat and Obsidat. I believe this gives Rill a guaranteed counter swing for lethal.
Yeah, in fact, something that Eric can consider doing here is making a rat and double blocking Michael's rat. Because all that Eric really wants to do in this spot is force out as much of Michael's hand as possible. That way he knows the coast is clear the next turn. I guess there is some risk there that he makes 2 rats.
He could just take everything.
Yeah, he could. He has a lot of different options here. It's just about what are the unlikely cards that he wants to play around in this spot.
Right. It doesn't seem likely to me that Braverman could kill him here if he just took it all.
He can also just chump block the Obsidat and then make a token before damage. He could block 1 and 1, again, just trying to force some of the rats out of some of the cards out of Michael's hands just to make sure the coast is clear. A lot of different routes.
Yeah, I don't think he has to be overly concerned with his life total because he has that Gray Merchant in hand. So, like I said, I wouldn't be surprised to see him just take all the damage.
He only has to be concerned about getting randomly killed himself. So even though it's extremely unlikely, he may play around Gray Merchant out of Michael's deck because it's one of the few cards that could conceivably kill him from this spot.
Yeah, right now, if he had a Gray Merchant, Michael would have a devotion of 5. So Rill probably wants to stay above that number.
Yeah. But these are all kind of corner case. This is all corner case stuff.
Block 1-1. Braverman will start by making 1 Pack Rat. See if Rill will do the same.
It seems, again, free, and if you get Michael to tap down the rest of his mana here, I'm sure Rill is pretty happy with this.
And Rill will make a 2nd rat. That puts a 3rd rat in for Braverman. That's Braverman's entire hand is now gone. But he does get to eat Rill's Pack Rat.
I mean, it is 3-3, he does have the 3/3s. All of his rats survive. He can pin down the Desecration Demon with his rats. Michael is still drawing to Elspeth in this scenario. He has set this up. He does have a Pack Rat advantage, so Elspeth can take care of the Desecration Demons, and Michael may be able to take control of the game from there.
Yeah, he's gotten out.
Now, does Michael respect the possibility here of a Gray Merchant?
Now, I think that's one thing. If you go back, if Rill had taken all the damage, I was thinking whether or not this would be a lethal turn then.
Well, Michael still has the option of just making rats.
Yeah, well, he can make rats, but then he has to sack 2 rats to the demons.
Yeah.
So he's gonna go ahead and tap the 7/7 demon. We'll see if he chooses to make another sacrifice.
So this 6/6 demon, the way the board is set up, is a lethal attack. It's coming across for 6, then knocks Michael down to 7, and Eric's devotion count is exactly 7 here, if this Gray Merchant enters play.
Yeah, and he's gonna take that, and Gray Merchant will seal it. Rill showing that he has the Gray Merchant. And that is for a devotion of 7. So game 1 goes to Eric Rill, hitting for exactly 7.
I mean, Michael did a really good job of getting the game to his point where he at least had a draw to get himself back into it, but it was not to be.
And Michael draws the top card. It's Caves of Koilos. So,
Yeah,
had an out he could have played 2, but wouldn't have hit.
Yeah, he could have again sacrificed the other Desecration Demon and hoped to draw Elspeth. But I think that he was still playing the game like he had a possibility to win. And the way that Michael plays it there, if there's no Grey Merchant in Eric's hand, then suddenly he draws, let's say, Hero's Downfall at the top, and he still may be able to race.
Yeah, well, there's a tough situation there because if he does that, like it would have to be Elspeth, because then Eric has Pack Rats and Michael doesn't anymore because of all the sacrifices he had to make. It's still a really rough situation for him.
But Michael has his Opes set that's still triggering it in and out in the world where, you know, he rips a removal spell that can handle Desecration Demon. So there's a lot of different cards that Michael can try to play for there. The way that he plays it, I think he allows himself to draw a removal spell and still have a shot, but
he would have to kill, if he had drew Elspeth, he'd have to kill his own Obsidat.
Exactly. That's what I think the way that Michael played it on that last turn still gives him a shot if, say, Hero's Downfall is the draw.
Okay. Absolutely. That makes sense.
So, you know, I think Elspeth still gives him an outside shot in that game, but Michael was trying to open up the maximum number of outs to allow him to get out of it. He was willing to risk the Grey Merchant. Eric had it, and now we're on to game 2.
All right, going to sideboards. Sideboard matchup that is, we have gone to a lot in Standard. The general plan, as we see in Braverman sideboard, is to board in Erebos, and some number, he has an additional Duress and Thoughtseize effects. So he has 2 Duress, 2 Erebos in his board. He has an additional Underworld Connections. Have to think he would be using that as well. Yeah,
Sign Collector he can bring in, try to really attack Eric's hand and win with card advantage. Eric's going to be in a very similar plan here. Sideboard of 3 Lightbane Zombies, 2 Drowned Sorrow, 2 Doomblade, 4 Duress, Underworld Connections, 2 copies of Erebos, God of the Dead, and a Liliana Vest. I think the 2 copies of Erebos, the Underworld Connections, the Duresses, and the 1 Liliana, all reasonable for the sort of attrition, card advantage, card selection sort of game.
Of note here, Rill has 4 Duresses in his sideboard to only 2 out of Braverman's deck.
Yes, although Braverman's making up for it with the Sign Collectors. That's effectively more Duress slots. So it's not quite the same thing, but moving into white gives you that option. You don't have to play just exclusively Duresses. And Sign Collector does some work in some other matchups as well. Yeah. It's really nice against, say, you know, in the Esper Revelation matchups, you play a Sign Collector, you take something, then your opponent can't play Jace and minus it, or they can, but they immediately lose the Jace to a 2-power attacker. So it does come with some benefits that Duress does not enable.
Sign Collector is great there. Now in this matchup, how good is Sign Collector? Looking at, just thinking about the mono black decks, a lot of the times the cards you're Duressing are their Duresses and their Underworld Connections in this matchup.
It's a little bit worse. I still think it's valuable to bring in, if no other reason. You know, these decks play a fair number of Devour Flesh effects. You're trying to open up a path to get Obsat into play, and Sign Collector being able to take a removal spell, potentially eat a Devour Flesh, can go a long way to opening up one of your game-winning threats to take it over.
All right, so with that, looking at a couple of the other things that they have in their deck lists, Michael is playing a 1 of Whip of Erebos. That's something we see sometimes in and sometimes not in these decks. As we said before, he does have 3 Obsats, and actually we did say there is 1 Blood Baron. Instead of playing the 4 Obsats, he does have 1 Blood Baron in the main.
Yeah, part of the problem with Blood Baron is even in the black matchups now, Lightbane Zombie is so prevalent, and you know the mono black players anticipate that there will be some white creatures in the black-white mid-range deck. You take a lot of collateral damage when your big threats get hit by Lightbane Zombie. It's probably on the balance still worth having in some number, but it's easy to do too much of that sort of thing. You can stall on lands, you can get attacked by Thoughtseizes, and Lightbane Zombie is another factor.
Well, we are on to game 2. Braverman will be on the play this game. A lot of times in these matchups, as we've seen, the first few turns can just be a flurry of discard spells, and the one player to get card advantage, to emerge with card advantage from those first few turns can really be ahead.
Or a big threat. Yeah, but these decks post-board can really go after each other's hands. And because of that, it often makes sense to be keeping land-heavy, action-light hands because your hand's just going to get attacked anyway.
Yeah, we see Rill's hand. He's getting Thoughtseized. Is 4 lands, Night Veil, Demon, and Underworld Connections.
I think in this matchup, generally speaking, you're going to want to go after the sources of card advantage. They're the most dangerous thing.
Right, so Underworld Connections usually the target here because the other ones are easier to, Night Veil Spectre is easier to deal with. You can hit it with some of your other kill spells. What are your thoughts is he can take the one that he can't otherwise answer?
It's possible he doesn't have an answer in hand to Desecration Demon, needs to be worried about that. Or that if he's taking Night Veil Spectre, that to me indicates that he's planning on playing a Pack Rat game. It's the best card in Eric's hand, assuming that you're trying to get Pack Rat online.
Yeah.
You don't care that much about connections, you don't care that much about Demon, but Night Veil may allow him to keep pace.
Well, drawing a Scryland here from Eric. Right now, the connections, while really good in this matchup, is a little off curve. You know, it's your 4-drop along with the Desecration Demon. It's going to pass back. And as you said here, Braverman does have a turn 2 Pack Rat.
And not too surprised here. He knows the coast is clear. And the Night Veil gives Eric the maximum opportunities to, find an answer, potentially race. If this Pack Rat goes unchecked, then Underworld Connection is going to be way too slow for this game.
But once the Pack Rat hits 4, that's usually the game, right?
It's very hard to get out from under that. It's one of those things where before it gets to 4, you can Bioblade it. After it gets to 4, then Elspeth can be an answer if you're playing the black-white build. But if you're on the mono-black side of it, basically coast is clear.
Yeah, and Michael Braverman wasting no time. He's going to go right in there, Pack Rat, and he makes a copy, discarding Elspeth. And he's going to see, he swings in for 2. There is currently no Bioblight in Eric's hand. And he'll play a replacement Night Veil Spectre that he drew here. Eric, remember he has 1 of each temple in his hand, was fortunate enough to draw the black-white temple this game.
Yeah, pretty fortunate.
Yeah, in his deck. 1 of each his deck, yeah. With his Night Veil. So
I mean, he's 1 in 4. It's not, he's got a pretty good chance.
Michael's going to scry here. We see Obsidat and Devour Flesh hiding out in his hand, but at this point, they may all just be Pack Rats.
I mean, there's still some risk in allowing Eric to go crazy with the Night Veil Spectre here. The problem is that Michael really wants to rush to get these rats to be a 4/4 as fast as possible, so he doesn't have to worry about Bioblade anymore. But it's also a big risk for him to take these Night Veil Spectre hits, especially with Eric having a white source of mana in play.
Well, Braverman, you see here, used his temple, and he left a card on top. To me, that says he's planning on getting Night Veiled next turn. Because, he's pretty hesitant about keeping it there. But sometimes you can do that in this matchup. You can intentionally give your opponent, a swamp or something that doesn't answer what you're doing.
Yeah.
So go ahead and make a rat that puts Eric Rill down to 12. 1 more rat should do it if Eric can't answer here. And draw there for Eric. It's a spell. See if it's a Bioblight.
But if he does answer, he's got a commanding advantage in this game.
Absolutely. Bioblade is huge. Swings for 2. Knocks Braverman down to 14. We'll see the card that Braverman decided to give Rill. It was a Caves of Koilos.
I mean, a second white mana could potentially allow Eric to find an Elspeth on the top of Michael's deck.
Yeah, but if things are going according to plan to Michael, there's just not very many turns left in this game, right?
Right, that's the thing. I mean, Eric would have to throw out a lot of jump blockers or use a lot of removal to get to that stage. And so far what's happened in this game indicates that Eric does not have a lot of removal spells, if he has any at all.
Yeah, we know about more lands and an Underworld Connections and a Demon. So Eric can make a Desecration Demon to not die. And that's what he'll go ahead and do. Which means he is dead to a Mutavault at this right now.
Yep, Mutavault is lethal.
As is another, just a creature, a Pack Rat would do it. We'll see if Braverman hits. Either way, he's in a great spot.
But all Eric wants to do is get out of this turn with the opportunity to still draw a Bioblade.
Well, if you're Braverman, you just make a Pack Rat here to stop that out then, right?
You can make a Pack Rat and say go, but at that point, you're probably committed to allowing the Desecration Demon to just hit you. You don't want to sacrifice and open up Bioblade again if that's the whole point of all of this. And at that point, Grey Merchant becomes a concern. I mean, this hit drops Michael down from 14 to 6, hypothetically, and then Grey Merchant's lethal. So I don't think that plays on the table. Michael may have to risk this Bioblade for at least 1 more turn. I do not think he can afford to take this Desecration Demon hit.
Well, how does he not take it? He has to sacrifice
Yeah,
to it?
exactly. Or use a removal spell or something, but...
Well, his only removal spell is Devour Flesh. And I want to say that Michael has a plan here, right? Because these were cards that... Eric's only played cards that were basically in his opener. So it's not like this Desecration Demon on turn 4 is a surprise.
Right.
Michael goes down to 12 here for Godless Shrine. Looks like he's going to go for the Obsidat, the Ghost Council in his hand, or for Pack Rat plus Devour Flesh. But Pack Rat Devour doesn't seem particularly great right now.
I mean, he's still... Well, at that point, the Rats are 4/4s, but he's still in that world has to take the Desecration Demon hit for all this line of play to be logical. If the point is to try to beat Bile-Blight, then he has to take a big hit, and Grey Merchant suddenly matters a lot. So he may be better served just saying, all right, Eric, you get one more draw step at Bile-Blight, and
So make
if you
a
don't
rat swing
find
the
it,
team.
yeah.
Well, if you make a rat, you can't even... That's what I'm saying. It costs 2 rats if you want to keep doing damage.
Yeah.
And I don't think he can afford to pay 2 rats. And he doesn't have lethal anymore. It's like he can either attack in here or he can tap the demon, but he can't do both.
Right. This is pretty dangerous stuff. I mean, Michael, you can tell, he wants to try to find a line of play that would allow him to get these Rats out of Bile-Blight range, but the opportunity costs on those plays are all too high.
Yeah, tap. Yeah, he makes a rat, taps the demon, he puts Eric Rill to 3. But you're right, Land Grey Merchant, which I believe Eric has, is game here. It's a swing for 9. The question for Eric is whether or not he wants to swing first.
Oh, I definitely just announced combat. Put the ball in Michael's court, see what's going on.
If you're Michael, if you don't tap here, you're conceding to, you're allowing Grey Merchant to beat you, which may not be wrong.
I mean, he can still Devour Flesh inside of combat here and not lose the game to a Grey Merchant, even if it happens post combat.
He would go to 1. Right, Rill would sacrifice the Night Veil.
In theory, yeah. And then you have 3 4/4s attacking next turn. So even if Eric generates a Grey Merchant post combat, it's not enough.
All right. But if you're Braverman, you need to make Eric sacrifice before damage. Otherwise, he can go ahead and sacrifice the demon post damage, and then he does have enough damage.
Yeah, it needs to be inside of combat.
Yep. You can't like wait and do the Devour Flesh in response to Grey Merchant.
Right.
Eric's gonna swing the team, and if you're Michael, oh, he's gonna take it. Then he should be dead.
Yeah, I mean, this is just...
And there you have it. Eric Rill, 2-0 is gonna win here.
Yeah, Michael can't even Devour Flesh himself in response to get out of this turn.
No, he gains 3, goes to 6, but that Grey Merchant's for 7. Yeah, this is lethal. So if he Devour Flesh is in combat there, Rill goes to 9. I mean, it's not a good spot. I'm not sure he still wins because Rill can sacrifice, he can sacrifice Night Veil, go to 6. Then Grey Merchant still drains for 4 more, and Eric's up to 10. And Michael doesn't have a lethal attack next turn either.
But he might have lethal the subsequent turn. I mean, it's...
He'd have to draw something.
Yeah.
And that Devour, he's gonna cast Devour Flesh targeting Eric, and that's still not enough. And
Right.
there you have it.
Pretty impressive stuff there. I mean, that's a really complicated game from Michael's side. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's interesting because it's kind of like one of those you made your own bed situations, right? He thought seized Eric, and he kind of thought seized and decided to go on the Pack Rat plan.
Yeah.
And then the Pack Rat turned out to not be good enough there.
Although it felt like, it felt like the tools were there for him to race it. I mean, he had to, he played a dual land untapped that turn. Elected not to sacrifice the Desecration Demon.
He played an untapped dual land and then didn't tap out on mana.
Yeah, it's a very, very odd sequence of plays there. I have a feeling, I don't know for sure, but I have a feeling where Michael played the Godless Shrine untapped, having a line in play in mind, thought better of it, and then what ended up happening on the last turn ended up happening.
Yeah, I mean, so let's say he has somehow gets that. I mean, I don't know if he wins with the other route. I think one of the things is when you're pack riding your opponent, to win the race when you're pack riding in mono black, sometimes you do need the help of a Mutavault or two.
Yeah.
You know, and Braverman did, like, if one of his